Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us for this presentation on selected in the H-1B lottery, now what? This webinar is being recorded and the recording link will be emailed to all of you. This webinar is provided as an educational service by Alcorn Immigration Law. The information discussed by our panel is an overview only and should not be construed as legal advice or advice to take any specific action. Please be sure to consult an attorney and get assistance with your particular legal issue. Towards the end, we will have an option to have a Q&A. So go ahead and please submit any questions you may have. Just keep in mind that these questions do get shared publicly, so please don't share any sensitive or personal information. And we'll try to get as many questions as time permits. It is now my pleasure to introduce to you founding attorney Sophie Alcorn.
Thank you, Edith. Thank you so much. It is great to be here with everybody today. Thank you all for attending this webinar on H-1Bs with Alcorn Immigration Law. As Edith said, we will try to answer as many questions as we can. So please do put them in the question and answer panel in Zoom, not in the chat window, so that we can address your questions fully. So thank you. So today we're going to talk about everything that you need to know for the next 90 days in this H-1B season. We are talking about selected in the H-1B lottery, now what? And I think all of you know about Alcorn Immigration Law, but our mission is to overcome borders, expand opportunity, and connect the world. We practice compassionate, cutting edge, and rigorous immigration law in service of the betterment of humanity. So we got you covered. My name's Sophie. I'm the founding partner, and I am here today with our amazing H-1B expert attorney, Gilberto Orozco Jr. Gilbert is a California attorney. He has in-depth H-1B experience from the last 6 years of your life have mostly been focused on H-1Bs, I think, something like that.
Right.
And he's the proud son of immigrants himself, and I'm the proud daughter of an immigrant. And some fun facts about Gilbert are that he started his own landscaping company when he was in college, and he now has not one, but 2 German Shepherds who also look to him for guidance. So thank you for being here with me today, Gilbert, so we can do this webinar together.
My pleasure.
Thanks. And this is our team. Many of you, shout out, I recognize many of you in our audience today. So thank you so much for attending. You already know many of our team members. We are a global team, and we all have some connection to immigration. This is work of the heart for us. So we're all either immigrants or children of immigrants or married to immigrants, but for each of us, it's personal in some way or another. And because of that personal connection and our compassion and our expertise, we're very proud to boast some great statistics, especially in the H-1B world, where we saw over the last 4 years of the Trump administration that national approval ratings declined across the board, dropping from 93% approvals under Obama to less than 70% approvals under Trump. And also there was a huge issuance of more requests for evidence. Hopefully we can speculate about that a little bit more later. Hopefully it'll be less this year, but anyway, our cases typically win quickly without a request for evidence, and we're really proud of that. And we have a vast national and global network. We work with a lot of venture capital firms and their portfolio companies. I'm a mentor at 500 startups and attended Stanford, and we are in a lot of newspapers. I have a weekly TechCrunch immigration column, and was recently again in NBC, Business Insider. So exciting times. We're super happy to share all of this knowledge, and we really hope it benefits people around the world. All right, so just to put this in perspective for our immigration overview, where are we today? So today we're talking about H-1Bs. They are visas. Many people get them and then they hope to get a green card, and that's a way to move to the US more quickly than getting a green card. And then eventually when they have a green card, some might want to become citizens, which is a personal process they can do one day. For all of you today, this is less relevant, but for people you know, you can tell them you don't actually need to have a visa like an H-1B to get a green card. A green card can be harder and slower, but for those folks in other countries who want to move here eventually, the green card is also another option. But today we're talking about the H-1B, and whether it's a visa or a status, it's a non-immigrant category in US immigration law, a temporary stay. And many students are on the H-1B journey as well. And they often start in the F1 category for international students, or sometimes the J1 category for training programs, exchange visitors, researchers. But most of the 1 million international students in the United States, almost all of them are on F1. And if you're here today, hopefully that means that you're H-1B. If you're an international student, hopefully it means that you're out of OPT and STEM OPT land now, and you are moving on to greener pastures of H-1B, which is the platform to eventually be sponsored for a green card. So a big congratulations to you for that. So lots of things to think about as you're moving into the next 90 days. Money and time are some of them. What documents you need to gather are another. The prevailing wage that the person getting the H-1B will need to be paid is another factor. So lots of things to keep in mind throughout today's presentation. Gilbert, can you tell us some about what is an H-1B?
Of course. So an H-1B is a specialty occupation. That means it's a position that requires the minimum of a bachelor's degree or the equivalent work experience. There's also a few requirements for the proposed salary, one of those being the prevailing wage. So depending on the work location and the proposed position, that determines what the prevailing wage would be. So again, this visa is for professionals. We go through a lottery system, which just closed. And it can also be used for startups.
Yeah. So tell us, what is a specialty occupation?
So in layman's terms, a specialty occupation is a position that requires a bachelor's degree or the equivalent. This is usually a position that aligns with the beneficiary's qualifications, and we have to prove and convince USCIS that without this specific degree that the beneficiary has, the position will not be able to be performed.
So part of our process is working with our clients to ensure that the job title, job description, job duties that the company is proposing for the H-1B beneficiary as their job, that it meets this government definition, that it's specialized enough, it's professional enough, and also that the wage is high enough. I know a lot of people were concerned last fall about the wage. So good news, none of that 30% increase is still in effect, right?
Right.
Okay, and hopefully it'll stay that way. It seems to be the case for now, at least, right?
Right, fingers crossed.
Okay, fingers crossed. So right now we're pretty much at the same wage levels as last summer and times before that.
Correct.
So that's a relief for employers. And immigration's also been fraught under the last year with COVID, but there's actually been some vast improvements within the last couple of weeks here. There were tons of different travel bans due to COVID, executive orders, and then this whole slew of national interest exceptions to allow people to get in despite the bans. But the good news is that many of these travel bans have ended or expired. And so most notably for our purposes, Gilbert, is there an H-1B across the board ban on new H-1B visas at consulates anymore?
Not anymore.
Woo! Okay, you heard it from the expert. So this means that if somebody is in, gosh, let's pick a country without another type of ban. So like if somebody's in Mexico, their H-1B got selected, assuming they can book an appointment, they will be eligible to actually receive an H-1B visa in their passport. So that is a super wonderful thing. There are, however, geographic bans that still remain. We see this mostly for our clients coming from Europe or the UK, as well as China. There's some orders saying if you've been in these places within the last 14 days, you're not allowed to go into the US. So often for European travelers, we're recommending that they hang out in a non-Schengen country before coming to the US. Some find a way to do that in the Europe area, and others end up hanging out in Mexico for a couple of weeks on the beach before they come in. You just have to make sure that you have the ability to go to that place as a visitor without another visa so you can actually travel there. We have been successful in getting people in despite the Schengen travel ban, for example. We recently brought in 2 people for a high profile award ceremony where they were stuck in Europe. They needed to be in the United States in less than a week, and we had to get special permission for them to come to the US, and they did do it, and very thrilled, super thrilled about that outcome. But for most people in H-1B, you're probably not working on a COVID cure, and if you're in Europe right now or China, for the foreseeable future, we need to plan as if you will be subject to these geographic travel bans unless they change. So it's good to just keep in mind the possibility that you might need to plan a business trip to Cancun and get some R&R before you start your new job in the United States in fall. Alrighty, so now we're going to talk about what is next and how, for all of our clients on the call, how we work together. So, okay, first of all, there's a couple of decisions to make. So let's talk about the first one. Gilbert, what is regular processing, what is premium processing, and why should people use one or the other?
Great question. So this is about how quickly we get a response from USCIS.
Okay.
The cases filed under regular processing, we can expect a response within 2 to 4 months. If the case is filed under premium processing for an additional government fee, then we can expect a response within 15 calendar days.
Okay. Is there premium processing for the second step after USCIS of the State Department in getting a visa?
There's not.
Okay, so it only speeds up the USCIS portion stateside.
Right.
Great. And then just a note, that's also separate from having Alcorn immigration law expedite or recently super expedite your case with our own internal preparation timeline. Okay, so who has to get premium processing now for the lottery? Does anybody really have to do it? I mean, some people want to do it for peace of mind and anxiety, right?
Right. If they're interested in it, it's definitely an option. But at this point, I don't think many people have to. The reason being is if you're filing the case of the change of status, and we can talk about it a little more right now, your effective date in H-1B would be October 1st, regardless of whether you file under regular or premium. And if you file as consular processing, the earliest you could enter is still October 1st.
Yeah, because the H-1B cannot take effect until October 1st at the earliest. And this is our second year with the electronic lottery system. Last year was all crazy because of COVID, But my recollection, Gilbert, is that last year, and correct me if I'm wrong, last year was one of the first years they did not temporarily suspend premium processing for H-1Bs in spring, right? Like we had premium processing all summer, all spring and summer last year.
I think it was canceled temporarily.
Oh, it was. It was at the beginning of COVID, and then it came back in June.
Right.
Right. Oh, dark times. Okay, so so far this year, it is still available, correct? And I have not seen any indication that it would be canceled this year. Have you?
Nope.
Okay, so we think it's still available. If you know you want it for peace of mind or employee engagement, or like as a benefit to a valued team member, it's definitely something that you could add in. It's available. If you think you might want it later, you could just as easily do it now. And the other time when it can become really important, and we'll talk about CAP-GAP more later, but if for somebody on CAP-GAP, if it's like right around September 1st and we still haven't gotten an answer on the change of status, then it can be really critical to add it in at that point. So I'll link that together when we get to our CAP-GAP section. Okay. Now, what if somebody's inside the United States right now and they have valid status until beyond October 1st? Should they choose a change of status or consular processing?
They should choose change of status. The reason being it's just the safest option, but both options are available.
Okay. Pre-COVID, people might choose consular processing because they knew they wanted to go back home and visit mom and dad for the summer, and it was easy to get a visa interview, and they might as well, and then they could travel internationally. But that's not the case this year. So we're really advising everybody to stay in the US if you're already here. We'll wait till the consulates have more predictable appointment availability, and then you can travel at that future time. Cool. And I do see questions starting to come in, so please use our question and answer panel, please, so that we can keep everything organized. Thank you. All right, so now let's talk about deadlines. So what is the normal H-1B deadline for a petition for somebody who just got selected?
We have until June 30th to prepare and submit the physical petition to USCIS. So USCIS gave us 90 days beginning April 1st, ending June 30th.
Okay, great. And what needs to happen by the end of the 90 days?
The case needs to be prepared, filed, and received by USCIS.
Does it need to be approved by June 30th?
No.
Okay, so it's okay if it's still pending and the government is working on it. Okay.
All right.
Okay, great. Now, there are some people who might have a different deadline. These are people who need something called CAP-GAP. Could you please explain what CAP-GAP is?
Sure. So CAP-GAP applies to people that are currently in F1 status, either in OPT and they're not STEM eligible, or already in their STEM and coming up to an expiration that's before October 1st. These people have a deadline of the expiration date of their current OPT or STEM OPT. Their case needs to be filed before that expiration date. As long as it's filed as a change of status before the expiration of their current employment authorization, their status and employment authorization will be automatically extended through September 30th.
Okay, great. So now, important point of clarification. If somebody is on their last OPT or STEM OPT work permit and they're not able to have another extension, so they need this, the deadline is not the end of your 60-day grace period. The deadline is the actual end of your work permit, your EAD card. So that's really important to keep in mind. And then this ties back to the prior slide when we were talking about to premium process or not to premium process. So Gilbert, let's say somebody used CAP-GAP, their H-1B is pending. the government hasn't gotten around to making a decision, and it's October 1st and it's still pending, and the person's in the US, what happens next? Are they allowed to work?
No, they wouldn't be able to work anymore. They'd have
Yeah.
to stop working. So at that time, it would be a good idea, if not sooner, to consider premium processing to get that response before October 1st.
Yeah, it's a really sticky situation because basically the person is stuck in the United States, cannot leave, and cannot work, and just has to wait for the decision before they can go back to work. So if you're relying on CapGap and you have not chosen premium processing, my rule of thumb is by September 1st, if you don't have a decision yet, it's probably prudent to upgrade your petition to premium processing at that point.
Right.
Cool. All right, great. Well, here's a related question that we got from the audience. It says, hi, if I had 2 years left of STEM OPT, can I use that first and then use my H-1B as consular processing? I think that's a really interesting question, and it's a question I've seen come up more and more. I think it's especially important for people from India or China to consider this. Do you have any initial thoughts on that, Gilbert?
It is a very common question indeed. So technically, you can file as consular processing and decide when you decide to activate your H-1B. Stay on STEM for a longer period of time. That way, your 6-year clock for H-1B begins at a later date rather than October 1st of this year. So it is definitely an option.
Yeah, but it can also lead to situations like our super expedite client that we have now, where he did this before COVID. He hasn't been able to travel. He never activated his H-1B. His OPT and STEM OPT are about to end. He's freaking out because the corporate law firm doesn't have capacity to do it in a timely enough manner. So it's possible if somebody's, if you're not from India or China and you're working at a company that's nice and they're probably going to sponsor you for a green card, it's probably not necessary to complete all of your STEM OPT before you activate your H-1B. It's kind of nice to avoid the obligation of having to travel by a deadline since there's so much uncertainty in the world right now. But yeah, if you're from China or India and you're at a company with a really strict immigration policy where they're not going to start a perm for you for many years, then yes, it could be wise to do this to preserve your options. So thanks for that great question. All right. And I guess there was a follow-up. So would you say it's better to activate the H-1B a little early? Yeah. If you understand where you're at in this landscape and what your path is, then yes. Yeah. Cool. All right. So cool. Yes, you're welcome. Excellent. All right. So now let's talk about next steps. So getting organized. So what are these next steps as we're getting ready to be prepared to file, Gilbert?
The first step is to gather all of the required documents for the petition. If we work with you on the registration, we should have everything already. If you're a new client coming, we'll ask you to provide specific documents that we'll need for the petition. We'll then work on the labor condition application, also known as the LCA. There's a few steps that we do internally and work with you as well. One of them being preparing notice of filing. Then we'll ask you to post it either electronically or physically at the work location for 10 days. And then once you confirm, then we can file the LCA with the Department of Labor.
Can you help explain conceptually what an LCA is and why companies, well, I mean, it's required, but like, what is the point of posting it?
It's to give notice to other employees at the company that the company is going to be hiring a foreign national.
Okay. And what information has to be contained within what is posted?
It's the job title and salary of the proposed position for the H-1B.
Yeah. And let's talk about posting it electronically or physically. Are people still posting physically in COVID right now because everybody's working from home?
There's a lot of questions about that. Some clients do choose to post physically. The regulations have not been updated, so as long as it's
That's
posted there
still
physically,
allowed. Okay.
even if no one's in office, it's allowed.
Okay, great. And what are some of the most common ways that people post it electronically?
Either through Slack or email, or if they have a platform where all of the employees have access to, they'll post it there.
Yeah. And it can be removed after 10 days.
Right.
But you do need proof that it was filed. Okay, cool. Great. Yeah, there's a lot of back end that we have to make sure goes smoothly here. Okay, and then comes the Alcorn magic behind the scenes where we do our, legal. I don't I went to some coaching program and they told me nobody ever cares about how sausage is made, Sophie. Don't bother telling your clients. So this is how we make sausage. So real quickly, Gilbert, what are we doing behind the scenes? And because also we need everybody to understand that we're busily working on all of this, and it takes time, and there's a lot of steps we're doing that don't necessarily involve us actively communicating with our clients, but that doesn't mean we haven't forgotten about you. We're still working on it very busily.
So after the LCA is filed with the Department of Labor, it'll be pending for about 7 to 10 days. While that's pending, we'll work on the forms that are included in the H-1B package. If there are any dependents, we'll also prepare the required forms for the dependents. We'll then send all of the documents for review and signature. As soon as the LCA is certified, the H-1B forms go to the company, to the employer, and any H-4 applications go to the beneficiary and the dependent. Once we have everything back, signed from the company and dependents if applicable, we'll then compile the package and file it with USCIS. And then depending on the processing that you choose, that determines how soon we get a response from USCIS.
Great. Now let's talk about signatures. So back in the day, before COVID, when I was practicing, it was very clear that there had to be an original document with a pen. You had to sign with a pen. There was no DocuSign. There was no Hello Sign. We had to snail mail the original papers to the government. How has that changed in COVID?
Fortunately, it's been updated to give people more flexibility. Now USCIS will accept a scanned version of the original signed document. They still don't accept DocuSign, but we're making some progress here.
So let's educate our lovely audience about this. The signatories need access to a printer with paper and a pen, which can be challenging for people to find in Silicon Valley. So before the deadline, make sure that if you're the person who has to sign this, you can go to like a UPS store or somewhere to print out pieces of paper, sign them with a pen, and scan them, or even just take a photo with your phone with an app like Cam Scanner. But there has to be an original floating around somewhere, and you have to keep it. Do not shred it, like actually save the physical paper, because they could ask for it one day. Cool. All right, thank you, Gilbert. Okay, so then after it has been received and is pending with U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services, what are the next steps for this petition?
So if it's filed under premium, as we discussed briefly before, we get a response in 15 calendar days after filing. If it's filed under regular processing, we'll get a response within 2 to 4 months.
Cool. Now, last fall, there was some speculation in the fee increase rule that they were going to change premium processing from 15 calendar days to 15 business days. So it'd actually be 21 calendar days. But as far as I'm aware, they're still doing stuff within 15 calendar days. Is that your sense of it as well?
Right.
Great. Okay, cool. And as we mentioned before, nobody can start on H-1B before October 1st. Okay, so we're going to first talk about change of status, and then on another slide, we'll talk about consular processing. So let's talk about the next. Well, you know what? First, actually, I want to go back here. Before the USCIS decision, let's talk about a request for evidence for a minute. What is it? How does it work? What happens?
So if USCIS has any questions about your application, They'll issue what's known as a request for evidence, also RFE. Sometimes they want more evidence about the company, about the work location. Sometimes they want more evidence about the proposed position to make sure that it qualifies as a specialty occupation. And other times they want more evidence about the beneficiary's qualifications. In general, depending on the issue, it could delay the process by 2 to 3 weeks, up to 5 to 6 weeks. It really depends on the type of RFE that's issued by USCIS.
Usually they give 60 to 90 days for the legal team to prepare the response.
Right.
Okay. Yeah, it doesn't mean your case could still easily be approved. It's just them saying, hey, we still have questions. And the things that they can ask questions about are the legal elements of this case that we as your attorneys are working on proving, like your company has the money in the bank account to pay this person at this salary. The type of job you picked is actually professional and specialized enough and meets the rules for what type of jobs count. The person's hasn't been working illegally and has been maintaining their current job or whatever conditions there are of their current immigration status. So it can be about a lot of things. It's not the end of the world. I just recorded a podcast this morning with somebody that's going to be released in a couple of weeks for our podcast, Immigration Law for Tech Startups. And it was super interesting, and I think it's really relevant here. I interviewed a personal and business success coach for immigrants in the United States. So he's an immigrant, he was an engineer. His name is Edward Gorbis. The podcast will come out in a few weeks. But so he's a coach and he's really into mindset. And he said that one of the ways to get prepared for the immigrant journey is to know, where you are and where you're going, and then to think about and mentally prepare for just systematically, okay, if something bad happens, how do I deal with it? And to practice in your minds, overcoming it. So the psychological part of all of this is, we don't want you to get an RFE. It is our intention to do as excellent of a job as possible at first to avoid one. That's why we have such low RFE rates. But just to know, like, okay, if I get an RFE, I'm going to take a deep breath. I'm going to talk to my legal team. I know they've got my back. They're going to make a plan. We'll think of whatever new evidence we can come up with based on whatever the government wants. And it's probably going to be fine. So like, just if you can, take that attitude with you into the next 6 months or so as we go through this process together, I think it will help people just deal with uncertainty. So I liked that tip.
I like that.
Thanks. Yay. Okay, so now let's talk. We talked about this. We talked about changes of status. So it'll automatically take effect on October 1st. If it's approved before October 1st. Do you know off the top of your head, let's say approval notice is generated on October 5th, would it have a retroactive October 1st start date, or if it would have a
It'll be October 5th
start date? Okay, great. So then the person could that wouldn't be counted against the 6-year total time. So
right.
That's really good. Cool. Okay, and so now what if somebody has gotten this change of status and they want to travel for fun? How do they do it?
We don't recommend that you travel right now due to COVID-19. But if you file the case as a change of status, you cannot travel internationally while the case is pending. Once it's approved and you have a valid visa stamp in your passport, you can travel, but you must re-enter the US before October 1st.
Yeah. And so the trick is, or the crux of the matter is, can you get the valid visa stamp in your passport? Because that requires scheduling an appointment at a consulate, attending an interview, A, actually scheduling it, B, not having it be rescheduled at the last minute, C, having them issue your visa promptly. These are reasons why, even though like in the Bay Area, people are getting more comfortable with vaccinations and everything, we still don't recommend travel because or international travel. Go see all the beautiful places in the US that you've been too busy to see because you've been studying. Go to national parks. All right. If they're open, I have no idea. Okay, so now let's talk about consular processing. So what is necessary in order to activate an H-1B if somebody is not doing a change of status?
So if you're in the US, you'll have to depart the US. If you're abroad already, the next step would be to obtain a H-1B visa stamp in your passport. You'd have to schedule a visa interview appointment at the US consulate or embassy in your home country, attend that visa interview, obtain your H-1B visa stamp, and then enter the US using your H-1B visa stamp and your H-1B approval notice. Once you enter, you're officially in H-1B status.
And I guess another benefit, if you have a valid visa and you're in the United States and you do need to travel for something essential, this allows you to pop in and out over the next 6 months. It's just that this activation process might take longer than October 1st. So that's the thing to prepare for. Right. Great. I see the questions coming in, so that's fabulous. We're definitely going to have time to answer them. So if anybody else has questions, please add them. All right, so now what do people need to know if they're new to H-1B, or what do employers need to tell their employees about how to keep us, their attorneys, in the loop about everything once they're on H-1B?
So the H-1B will be approved in increments of 3 years. So your approval notice will be valid for 3 years. It's important that we track those 3 years so that we can file an extension 6 months prior to the expiration date of your H-1B. If you ever travel internationally while on H-1B, we ask that you send us your most recent I-94. This is a document that's generated electronically, which updates your status upon every re-entry into the US.
Cool, thank you. Okay, so next steps, if anybody did not get selected in the lottery, we do have a webinar about that coming up in a couple weeks, about a month, first week of May. We'll be talking about H-1B workarounds. So if anybody else at your company needs a backup option, or any of your friends, we'll be talking about how to get H-1Bs without the lottery, and other types of visas, and how to qualify for an O-1, and how to get a green card. So we'll be including all of that in our email that Edith's going to send out soon. And then, just if you don't want to ask a personal question in the question and answer panel, which is public, you're more than welcome to contact us. If anybody does not have an attorney yet to file their H-1B by their deadline, please contact us right away. There's not that much time, and there's a lot that needs to happen. And I know that some people manage to navigate the lottery by themselves, but we want to make sure that everybody has ample time to have their H-1B thoroughly reviewed and looked at, and that we're not running up against any deadlines. And the sooner, if you hire us now, we will not have to charge expedite fees, although if you wait until June, we might not have the capacity to support. So you will get all of this, including our options chart, in your email, as well as our link to our podcast, where we have a lot on H-1Bs. So I'm going to end the share, and then we're just going to turn it open to questions for a little bit. So if you have questions, now is definitely the time to put them in the question and answer panel, and we will get started. All right, so first question. Does filing with premium processing increase the chances of an RFE, or is it just a myth? Dun, dun, dun. The age-old perennial question. What's your take on this, Gilbert?
It's a very common question. There is anecdotal evidence that, at least under the Trump administration, it was more common or more likely that you would receive an RFE if you requested premium processing. Under the Biden administration, we haven't seen this trend yet, but there's some truth behind it.
Yeah, I used to ask my dad about this, and he would say, well, if you ask the government, they would get really angry or and insulted that their adjudication standards that you're implying that their adjudication standards wouldn't be the same because they try to be impartial. But I was like, yeah, but practically speaking, he's like, it seems like it. So, but whether, you know, how much it matters for, is it, okay, so like right now we have this case, which we've explained the risks to our client. I don't think this person is on the webinar, as far as I can tell. And anyway, this person wants to be the CEO at an early stage tech startup that's being bootstrapped, that has not gotten hundreds of thousands of dollars of investment from an outside company. And we're setting it all up. We've worked with the corporate attorney. We're setting up the bylaws, the board. We're doing everything to establish the the employer-employee relationship, the ability to pay, all of the legal stuff. Technically, could it be approved? Yes. Is it risky? Yes. Does the client know it? Yes. Would we advise premium processing on that case? I think the answer is no way. Because we don't want to do anything that would ruffle the feathers of the person making a decision in such a delicate matter. We want them to have the full breathing room to fully examine the case. Also, if somebody's rushed and they don't know the answer, they're way more likely to just, I'll just RFE it, rather than actually like take time to sift through the hundreds of pages and read it and think about it. That being said, you know, if I think of like a major tech company down the street, they put premium processing on a, you know, like a level 4 data science PhD type thing. Is that going to get premium processing, you know, or is that going to get an RFE with premium processing? Probably not. So I think it only matters for like the marginal or more risky legal cases.
Right.
So I don't know, you can do it if you want it. A lot of people just like having it over with. So it's different for everyone.
You know, it's also worth noting that right now with Biden, we've actually seen the opposite, where cases actually get approved quickly. Some have been approved in less than 5 days when using premium processing. So we're hoping that this trend continues. We
really
like it.
Amazing. We have this wonderful trend that we're seeing with USCIS and premium processing right now. It's been beautiful. Yes, that is something to appreciate for sure. And yeah, it's a new administration. We're still feeling it out. It's the early days. It's been less than 3 months. They're doing a lot of changes internally at USCIS right now. So hopefully it's just gonna get like back to the Obama era, but better. That's what I'm rooting for. Okay, now we have another STEM question, then we have an E2 question, both about H-1Bs. So this next person wants to know if, okay, got it. So this person's working at company A on STEM OPT, and company A sponsored their H-1B. I don't know if it's going to be filed as consular processing or change of status, so we should probably talk about that. And this person is thinking about moving to company B, and they understand that they could change their employer for STEM OPT on company B. Oh, thanks, we got confirmation of consular that they're interested in. So they want to know, how does it work? Can they keep their H-1B? Will it be lost forever in the job switch, or how does that work? So would you like to take that one?
Sure, that's a unique situation. The safest route would be to activate your H-1B with company A. So staying with company A, activating your H-1B, entering back, and then switching your H-1B to your company B employer.
Yeah, that would really be the safest. We've seen other variations. Other variations are technically possible, but maybe not as safe as what Gilbert was just advising. That's true. It would be safest to even wait until after October 1st and go through like 3 pay cycles with company A on H-1B and then switch jobs. And you'd probably already have an H-1B visa in your passport at that point, which you could then reuse for travel with company B once that gets approved. I have seen other variations with consular, like this super expedite that we're doing now. He's still with his company A, but he did consular and he just never went to pick it up. And now he wants to do a change of status from STEM OPT to H-1B. So we're able to do that. I was super nervous about doing it, but I pulled it off for this Swiss guy who lived in Hong Kong. He had gotten an H-1B through consular processing approved for company A, and then years later did a change of status from like visitor to H-1B with company B. So it was like an old H-1B that he had never picked up, and we were changing the employers. It's technically possible, but if you can tolerate your current job, we would encourage you to stay there until this process is taken care of. But it is possible once you have an H-1B to switch H-1B employers. Okay, so hopefully that covered it for you. And then we have another question. And this is from somebody who is currently on an E-2 visa for a specific employer. And so I imagine that would be an E-2 essential employee of a business. And this person wants to know, is there any way I can stay in the US and start work on another visa, say a B1, B2, and re-enter or change status to H-1B? Okay, so I'm going to assume, let's just take an easy case. Let's say your E2 company sponsored you for an H-1B. Let's take that scenario first. I mean, that's fine. You can change status within the United States from E2 to H-1B without leaving, as long as your E2 status is valid past October 1st. Assuming another employer sponsored you in the H-1B lottery, you could file a change of status and a change of employer. So your last day at the E2 company would be September 30th, and your first day at the new company on H-1B would be October 1st. And there's no work allowed on a B1, B2, so don't do it. But here's another interesting question. And now with our new lottery system, it's very intriguing to me. Oh, and a new company. This person says a new company sponsored the H-1B. So yeah, it's fascinating. So okay, and if you have more questions, please put them in the Q&A panel, not the chat window. Thank you so much. So, and remember, this webinar is educational, and we're not advising you because we don't have all the details. But generally, oh, thank you for that. Okay, so person's here on E2, or person has an I don't know if you're here or not, but basically the question is, what if you enter before June 30th on a B1, B2 visa? Can you then file a change of status to H-1B to take effect on October 1st? If you just got your B1, B2 visa to consulate, I would say no, but if you had your B1, B2 for a while, I would say it might be possible. The H-1B is compatible with non-immigrant or immigrant intent. It's dual intent. But for somebody who's just here in the US right now, I would say just do a change of status, and then at some point give notice to your current E2 company that you're going to be leaving and starting with the new H-1B company on October 1st, and just do that without leaving. That's probably the safest. Anything to add there, Gilbert? There's a lot going on in that one. Okay, cool. Great. And now we have another question. Maybe our last question. So if anybody else wants us to answer anything, the time to speak up is now. This question is saying that somebody's wife was selected for the H-1B lottery this year. Hooray, congratulations. Oh, now this question is, will I qualify for H-4? Yes. And with H-4, am I able to work in the United States? No, we are both Canadians working in the United States. So Gilbert, okay, so probably the answer is no. You cannot immediately get an H-4 work permit. Gilbert, can you talk us through who qualifies for an H-4 work permit?
Yes, if his wife has an approved I-140, then he could get an H-4 EAD card allowing him to work in the US.
Yeah, and what does an approved I-140 mean?
It's step 2 in the green card process.
Okay.
It's the application that's filed with USCIS, basically holding your place in line.
Yeah. So as a Canadian who's already working in the United States, I imagine this person's on a TN, so this spouse is probably better off just sticking with the existing TN for now, and not pursuing a change of status to H4 until you can also qualify for the work permit based on your spouse's green card process with her employer. Cool. All right. Awesome. Well, that wraps it up for us today. We'll give you 9 minutes of your life back, ending early. Thank you so much to everybody for listening. Please do let us know if you have any questions. Edith will be sending the recording and additional links to everybody by email following up. We're available to consult with any companies who need H-1B support for any petitions that need to get filed. We would love to help you with that. The time to connect with us is now. And thank you for your lovely comments and questions. Hope you found this helpful, and referrals are truly the best compliment. So if you know anybody who could benefit from our services, we really appreciate you sharing the word. So thank you so much, everybody. Have a lovely day, and stay tuned for more webinars and podcasts and all the stuff that we're doing over here. So Gilbert, thank you so much.
Thank you, Sophie.
And Edith, thanks for helping with everything as well. All right, everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.